Hello, and thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Nathan Winkelstein. I am the Associate Artistic Director of Red Bull Theatre and your host for tonight's RemarkaBULL Podversation. For those of you who haven't joined us for one of these before, these are informal conversations where I sit down and chat with very talented artists about a particular scene in Shakespeare's canon. The conversation goes where it will, and it is just an opportunity to see how these wonderful talents' mind works and how they go about their craft. If part of that informal discussion is you. If you are watching this on YouTube, you can type in the questions in the YouTube chat, and we will answer as many of them as we can as we go along or at the end. So please do engage with us. This evening's Podversation will focus on the titular couple from Shakespeare's masterpiece, Antony and Cleopatra, with a special focus on Act 1, Scene 3, I am sick and sullen. If you want to have that text, there's probably going to be a link in the YouTube chat in just a second. If not, it is also easily available on the Red Bull Theatre website under this Podversation if you want to follow along. We have two guests for tonight's RemarkaBULL Podversation. We're moving up in the world. Our Antony is a Tony Award nominated actor. He played Antony in a 2002 production at the Guthrie, directed by Mark Lamos, as well as in 2000 at the Shakespeare Festival of New Jersey, now known as Shakespeare Theatre of New Jersey. He has performed in numerous Shakespeare and Jacobean productions across the country and in New York City, including Red Bull's own production of The White Devil. Our Cleopatra is a star of film, TV, and stage. She is a Callaway and Drama Desk Award winner. She also played Cleopatra in a production at the Guthrie, directed by Mark Lamos in 2002, and has appeared in more classical productions than I can name in New York and across the country. They are the power couple of screen and stage, Robert Cuccioli and Laila Robbins. Hi.
Hi.
Hey.
Hello.
Thank you both for joining. I really appreciate you taking time out of your remarkably busy schedules, which I guess shouldn't surprise me given how in demand actors of your caliber are, but I really do appreciate you taking some time.
Oh, it's a pleasure to revisit this.
Yeah, it's only been 19 years, right? I'm sure that it's fresh on.
It's been a heartbeat, yeah.
Yeah, fresh in your memory. I'm sure there was no prep required whatsoever. I'm going to get out of the way so that you can read the scene that we're going to be discussing. But first, I'm going to give everybody a little bit of context. And forgive me for reading this because I don't want to, God forbid, get some of these Roman names wrong. But at the top of this play, Cleopatra, the Queen of Egypt, a country under the Roman Empire's rule, and Mark Antony, arguably the most powerful of the triumvirate ruling Rome at this time, have fallen in love. Antony has ceased paying attention to his duties as a Roman triumvir, and in his distraction, the empire has started to crumble. News comes that Antony's little-loved wife, Fulvia, died while rebelling against Rome, and that the fleet of Sextus Pompeius, a Roman general and rebel, now control the Mediterranean. Mark Antony, upon hearing this news, decides he must leave Egypt and return to Rome, and in this scene, he goes to inform Cleopatra of his decision.
My script. I am sick and sullen.
I am sorry to give breathing to my purpose.
Help me away, dear Charmian. I shall fall. It cannot be thus long. The sides of nature will not sustain it.
Now, my dearest queen.
Pray you stand further from me.
What's the matter?
I know by that same eye there's some good news. What says the married woman? You may go? Would she had never given you leave to come. Let her not say 'tis I that keep you here. I have no power upon you. Hers you are.
Oh, the gods best know.
Oh, never was there queen so mightily betrayed. Yet at the first I saw the treasons planted.
Cleopatra.
Why should I think you can be mine and true? Though you in swearing shake the throned gods who have been false to Fulvia. Riotous madness to be entangled with those mouth-made vows which break themselves in swearing.
Most sweet queen.
Nay, pray you seek no colour for your going, but bid farewell and go. When you sued staying, Then was the time for words. No going then. Eternity was in our lips and eyes, bliss in our brows bent. None our parts so poor, but was a race of heaven. They are so still. Or thou, the greatest soldier of the world, art turned the greatest liar.
How now, lady?
I would I had thy inches. Thou shouldst know there were a heart in Egypt.
Hear me, queen. The strong necessity of time commands our services a while, but my full heart remains in use with you. Our Italy shines o'er with civil swords. Sextus Pompeius makes his approaches to the port of Rome. Equality of two domestic powers breeds scrupulous faction. The hated grown to strength are newly grown to love. The condemned Pompey, rich in his father's honor, creeps apace into the hearts of such as have not thrived upon the present state, whose numbers threaten. And quietness, grown sick of rest, would purge by any desperate change. I'm more particular, and that which most with you should safe my going is Fulvia's death.
Though age from folly could not give me freedom, it does from childishness. Can Fulvia die?
She's dead, my queen. Look here, and at thy sovereign leisure read the garboils she awaked. At the last, best, see when and where she died.
Oh, most false love! Where be the sacred vials thou shouldst fill with sorrowful water? Now I see, in Fulvia's death how mine received shall be.
Quarrel no more, but be prepared to know the purposes I bear, which are or cease as you shall give the advice. By the fire that quickens Nihilus' slime, I go from hence thy soldier, servant, making peace or war as thou affects.
Cut my lace, Charmian, come, but let it be. I'm quickly ill and well, so Antony loves.
My precious queen, forbear, and give true evidence to his love, which stands an honorable trial.
So Fulvia told me. I prithee turn aside and weep for her, then bid adieu to me, and say the tears belong to Egypt. Good now, play one scene of excellent dissembling, and let it look like perfect honor.
You'll heed my blood, no more.
You can do better yet, but this is meetly.
Now by my sword.
And target, still he mends. And this is not the best. Look, prithee, Charmian, how this Herculean Roman does become the carriage of his chafe.
I'll leave you, lady.
Courteous lord, one word. Sir, you and I must part. But that's not it. Sir, you and I have loved. But there's not it. That you know well. Something it is, I would. Oh, my oblivion is a very Antony, and I am all forgotten.
But that your royalty holds idleness your subject, I should take you for idleness itself.
'Tis sweating labor to bear such idleness so near the heart as Cleopatra this. But, sir, forgive me, since my becomings kill me when they do not eye well to you. Your honor calls you hence. Therefore be deaf to my unpitied folly, and all the gods go with you. Upon your sword sit laurel victory, and smooth success be strewed before your feet.
Let us go. Come. Our separation so abides and flies, that thou, residing here, goest yet with me, and I, hence fleeting, here remain with thee. Away.
Yay! I have to stand in for everybody else applauding. Yay! Thank you.
A little rusty, a little rusty.
Oh, that was so weird. We should. It was. There's a lot of echo. I could hear you through the window.
So, yeah, to let people, obviously, probably many of our audience know that you are a couple quarantining together, and I do think just because we get to see it so very rarely, Bob, if you don't mind moving over and doing the rest of it with Laila, that would be great. Just to
Absolutely.
warm all our hearts.
I'll see you in a bit.
Yeah. So Laila, as Bob joins, because I know we know, he can hear as he goes. It was actually fascinating. I found myself sitting there, and then I had all of these questions prepared, and then just listening to you, I started writing down other questions about the scene as it was going, which is cool. That hasn't happened to me yet. But I did want to start, because I think it's just an interesting aspect of an actor's process that maybe doesn't get talked about a whole lot, is when you all haven't done this for, do we have you? Sorry, I see you skipping a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
We're
adjusting the volume, sir.
Great. So you haven't done this for 19 years, and a blink. And I was wondering, when you agreed to do this, and we agreed on this scene, and you went, oh, I have to read this scene. You started with the interview, and now you're asking us to perform. Great. What was the first thing, and maybe it's different for the two of you, when you first looked at this scene, like, how do I not embarrass myself in front of an audience? What is the first thing you do with a scene like this when you revisit it or visit it for the first time?
We just remember our usual evenings together.
Well, I mean, revisiting it, it's amazing how much of it stays inside you once you actually start to do the language, It's almost like muscle memory. It almost as if it plays you. It's an interesting phenomenon. In approaching a scene for the first time, really just as usual, the given circumstances and where is the relationship at and what is the relationship. And then with the verse, there's such a back and forth with this scene. And looking at the cutoffs and where there are empty feet in the verse, things like that. I mean, before I say something about Ken Fulvia die, when he says that his wife has died, there's literally, I think, four feet of verse that are silent. So it tells you that I can take in that information and then come back with it. It's just all those little clues that one does when one's working on Shakespeare.
For me, it was actually trying to forget what I did, because this was the very first Shakespeare I ever did at the Shakespeare Theater of New Jersey. And then the second Shakespeare I ever did was this with Laila at the Guthrie. So I was very new to performing verse. And how I learned it, it was a long time ago, and I needed to break out of those new restrictions that I created for myself, or the rules, so to speak. So I had to shed some of that, those instincts that just came back naturally that Laila was talking about.
I want to just roll back that statement just a little bit, just for the sake of our audience, because I just want to make sure that everybody's following. Can one of you talk a little bit about, like, what a metric foot is and why we might think that means a pause, but also why it's not actually, as Bob is referring to, it's not some hard and fast mechanical rule, but is rather a tool for acting in truth? Could one of you just speak to that really quickly, just to give the audience a little bit of, like, what we just went hard into nerd, which I love, and I want to go further, but I just want to give them a little bit of a base.
Well, I mean, it's iambic pentameter, meaning five, ba 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 da 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 da, 5 of them. And then as you go through and do that sort of rhythm, then you can see where Shakespeare starts to break that pattern. Like at the beginning of a line, you would usually go ba ba, but sometimes he'll go ba ba. He'll switch the emphasis, and by doing that, he's telling you that the character is getting agitated or getting upset. And also, I learned a technique which I believe in. Not everyone believes in that technique, but I believe in breathing at the end of the verse line instead of at the end of a sentence. And that if you actually do that, if you breathe at the end of the verse line, it creates this sense of grasping the next idea out of the ether, which is kind of about discovering the speech in the moment. Sometimes people say that they think of Shakespeare as he's saying something perfectly. No, he'll say it one way, then he'll repeat it again, and then he'll repeat it a third time. And sometimes people want to cut that and go, that's not necessary. Well, it is, because he's having the character go, I'm saying this. No, I actually want to say this. No, actually, now I know the best way to say this.
That
this forward movement.
You saying that reminds me of my favorite example of that is like Macbeth's, which I realize this is not about, most famous speech. If it were done when 'tis done, then 'twere well it were done quickly. The first half of that is him repeating that sentiment in a number of different ways, trying to figure out how to like make it clear to himself. Where, you know, if the assassination could trammel up the consequence, is exactly the same thing. And it's exactly what you said. It's that rule of 3 repetition thing, which is it's a thing he goes back to a lot. I do wonder,
the beauty of the different the different theories, the different rules, so to speak, as to whether to breathe at the end of a line or to breathe out a punctuation, is to actually look at both ways of doing it and seeing which one has the meaning for you that you are trying to convey, or which one makes sense to you in that particular moment, to actually know what the rules are and figure out how to break them to your advantage.
Can you maybe speak to, which my guess is what you're somewhat referring, you said that when you first did this, it's perhaps not how you would do it now. Can you speak, you came from obviously an extremely accomplished and still very accomplished music theater career into Shakespeare. What were some of the mistakes you made when first dealing with verse? What did you do then that you would do differently now?
I was too concerned with doing it right. You know, I was too concerned with how it should be done. And you know, I worked with a very dear friend of mine who's a mentor, William Mezzo, who's a brilliant Shakespearean actor, and we went through it and the meanings of things, and what punctuation means, and I learned a lot. Like, my learning curve was like this, really, really quickly. So I think that now, since I know what the rules are so well, like the breathing at the end of a line or breathing at punctuation and what certain punctuation means, that I can relax in it more. I don't have to feel as, I think I was a little too stiff, a little too uptight about doing it right, and I don't think I need to do that anymore.
But as a singer, Bob, I mean, right away, I think, the first time I saw Bob do Shakespeare was when he did it with Tamara Tooney out at Shakespeare Theater in New Jersey. And, being a singer, he has the breath control already. He has the ability to do a long line. I mean, a lot of these singing techniques are very helpful. Now, by the same token, you don't want to sing your lines. That would be the trap. But having that technique already made him quite good at it quite quickly.
And there's a music to it. I mean, I think a lot of musical people do Shakespeare very well because they have that musicality that is in the verse. It's just a part of them.
And it seems to me that what you described with the technique, and kind of once you know the technique so well, you can let it go. And in acting, one of the terms we use for our audience, one of the terms we use is sort of, you write the book and then you throw it out, but you can't throw it out till you've written the book.
Right.
But of course, what you're describing also, I would venture, is right up there as one of the predominant things that separates a good music theater performer from a great one, is that a great music theater performer is hitting the notes and singing on pitch and on the rhythm, but that's what they're doing. Yeah. Why they're doing it is their character and their need and their truth. And to me, that's very similar to what happens with actor verse, is there's a what, but only insofar as it serves a why. And sometimes we get taught the what, and it takes us a little while to get through that to the why.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So let me ask then. You said, Laila, you said that when you first look at a scene, you think about given circumstances, needs, obstacles. Well, this particular scene has a lot of. I'm trying to think of how to put this for Cleopatra's character. To some extent, she's shall we say, self-creating some drama.
Yeah. She's a drama queen, and she's creating all these different moods, all these different. She's acting, oh God, I'm so sick. Oh, I'm fine. Okay, whatever. It just keeps flipping and flipping.
So,
and she accuses him of the same thing, that he's duplicitous. So one minute you don't want Fulvia, now she's dead, and now you're crying about her, and it keeps flipping and flipping and flipping. And I remember Judi Dench once said, when she played Cleopatra, she said, "Oh my God, she's so contradictory. She contradicts herself every 2 seconds. How am I going to play this role?" And the director had said to her, "Well, you're lucky you only have to play one thing at a time. You see, do you do this, you do that, then you do that, then you do this. And then together you create this very, very multifaceted person. But each line, has to be played for its value."
Well, the actor in me just got very excited. So I'm just going to repeat what you said, because I think it might be like one of those notes. People always talk about how, like, if you get taught, 90% of what you get taught is complete, call the word it, and then 10% makes sense, but it's a different 10% for every person. For me, the fact that you only have to play one thing at a time is like one of the notes, it feels like. So, yeah. For anybody listening, this, and Bob's the one who directs occasionally, but maybe Laila should be doing it. So then my follow-up question, obviously, for Cleopatra is she does all of these things. And the follow-up question is a rather simple one, which is why? What is she attempting to accomplish? Just why? I'll just leave it there. Why is she doing all of this?
I think she's testing his love. Sometimes I think psychologically, when people are testing someone's love, they sometimes push them to the brink. They push them to the edge. Oh, how much do you love me? You love me this much? I'll do this. I'll do this. You still love me? You still love me? I feel like she's testing him, and she's trying to hang on to him, but by being sort of fascinating and strong. And then at the very end, all of it comes down, and she's like, "I'm sorry." When he starts to walk out, she's like, "We've loved, and I don't even know what to say, and I'm going to miss you like crazy." And, I always remind students when I'm working with them with these sorts of scenes, like the messenger scene or something, there were no cell phones or texting. I mean, when somebody walked out the door, they walked out for a long time. And the next time you were going to get any news was a missive, months later. So the stakes are very high. I think one has to sort of take in the time period and the history and what is there and what isn't there, i.e. cell phones. So suddenly the stakes go a lot higher as far as communicating or getting a message back from the one you love so much. Yeah, did I answer the question?
Yeah, very well.
Yeah, and then I guess my follow-up would then be for our poor put-upon soldier, for Mark Antony. Even in the very first scene, we're in Act 1, Scene 3 right now. This is our second scene that we see the two of them together. In the first scene, she's pushing every button you've got, right? Like, it's how we're introduced to you. We're told, like, he's paying no attention.
Cannot get a word in edgewise.
Yeah.
Ever. Even when he's dying.
So, yeah, right, that's right. Well, he has to ask, doesn't he? He has to ask, could you please be quiet for a second?
Would you please be quiet for a minute? I'm dying here.
So I guess my question is, I was watching a couple of different versions of it today to remind myself of it, and I found that it's interpreted a million different ways. And all we've seen is these two, let's say, quarreling. Let's use that term. You can question it if you want. Is that what their relationship is? Like, is that what Mark Antony likes about her? What is it that Mark Antony likes about her?
No, I think that there's a large part of that he finds charming and endearing, until that it really pushes him to the brink. And I think that part of there also, I think that he does enjoy the battle between between them. And
yeah, I think it's like
it's a combination of both.
There's like a sexiness to it.
Yeah.
But it is very difficult, and it's interesting that you bring that up, because we have both discussed that you've only got one scene where they're getting along, and you have to establish the entire relationship in those first scenes. And yet in those first scenes, we're kind of fighting.
But you barely have a whole scene. I mean, it's only a
Yeah.
couple of exchanges, and then all of a sudden the shit hits the fan. So it's...
And in some ways, people have said it's hard to do this play sometimes. It's almost like you need people who are bigger than life. Like when, Richard Burton did it with Elizabeth Taylor. These people already had a size to them just as human beings, So you make them Antony and Cleopatra, and you kind of buy into that bigness, that larger than life quality, which is sometimes hard to get in one scene. I also think there's also between them, there's a narcissistic reflection that is very seductive to both of them. They like that this person is my lover, that this woman is my lover, that there's a narcissism between that they share, I think, as well.
But also it's, based upon what you were saying about the size of the actors that need to play this, is that 90% of this play, they're not together.
Right.
So that strength of that energy between them needs to be felt even in the scenes that they're not together in. So you need that kind of strength, dynamic between the two actors that do it.
And they're both described that way. Octavius, I should have the quote on me. But Octavius, after he hears of Antony's death, describes him as the world will never see his like again.
Right.
I mean, in some ways, he's the truest heir to Julius Caesar, the Colossus. He's almost more that than Octavius, who's more of a politician. And of course, Cleopatra has her own immense mythology almost built around her. So yeah, the idea that they're larger than life. And I guess maybe Shakespeare's helping us with that a little bit. Obviously, we don't feel it here, but I was going to ask you about the fact that we never see these two alone, ever. They are always performing. There's always people with them every single time. And I think they're the only couple, if not someone in our YouTube audience is going to let me know, but I think they're the only couple that is true for, that we never get to see them truly by themselves.
Yes, there is that quality, as you said, a performance that in this palace, that part of it is like, I just want some points. Oh, no, you just want some points. There's a performance of who's going to win for the audience, for the eunuchs and the Charmian, which is interesting. Yeah, because it's never alone.
Mm. Yeah, I don't think ever. I think the closest is when she's helping with the armor, but there's another guy there trying to put the armor on. There's always somebody.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I've just always found that fascinating, because I think Shakespeare's very good at giving us hints how to play characters. And
they soliloquize with people there, so it's not as if they're ever speaking to the audience or they're speaking to themselves. There's always a performative quality to it.
Yeah, which I guess is part of that size thing, that bigness. Our previous guest, Andre de Shields, talked about how performance was more life than life to some extent. It's life distilled, life without the humdrum. And it almost seems to me like Antony and Cleopatra are like the next step of that. They're the distillation of the life inside the stage. They are bigger and purer and more themselves in their own weird way than everyone around them, and that draws them to one another. It's interesting. I don't know. But yeah, let me ask.
No, it's interesting that Andre said that, because I was discussing Streetcar Named Desire last week with New Jersey Shakes. And I got a little verklempt, because I was saying, when you play these big roles and they allow you to kind of go to corners of your soul and your being in such a full way with such beautiful language, that when that stops, when you're done with the play and the show is over, the production is over, you sort of mourn that character, because you don't get to go to those corners anymore in your own self. Those corners are not as fully as explored as when you have this incredible play to put yourself into and stretch yourself into.
Yeah, that's a fact. I mean, I want to come back to that point when we start. Spoiler alert, part of this conversation is going to be about how it was for you two as a couple, but I'm trying to hold and talk about it later, but I'm curious about that in that context as well. I'd love to, honing back in on the scene itself, this is a nerdy question and maybe will only interest some of the audience. But right before this scene, Cleopatra has told a messenger to go find Mark Antony, and if he finds Mark Antony joyous, say that I'm sick. If he finds him sad, say that I am dancing. Mm-hmm. And then Mark Antony comes in, and she says she's sick. Mm-hmm. And then she says, like 3 lines later, that he has a cheerful look. Is she misreading? It feels like it feels like Shakespeare's saying Antony's coming in hot here, like kind of cheerful hot, but then the situation doesn't seem to call for that. And maybe this is not something anyone thought about but me.
I think that is it's a projective dig. Does that oh, you're really chipper today, and I'm not. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? And I think it's trying to incite something.
Right, because I've gotten news that he's leaving. So I'm like, I'm sick, but you're going to be leaving. You seem pretty happy. So what's up with that? It's only later that I found out that his wife has died. But right. I think I'm provoking him and saying, wow, how can you be so happy when I'm so sick and I'm not feeling well and you don't seem to, you're out. Where are you going and why are you going? And I'm not well. But she changes it then immediately and calls him on it, goes, stand away from me. I'm on to you. I can see that your wife has called you back, hasn't she?
Yeah, I see. So you're keeping him off balance. Yeah. Yes. If he thinks he's happy, I'm going to say he's sad. If he thinks he's sad, I'm going to say he's happy type thing. Yeah. My follow-up nerdy question, I apologize for these micro questions. This was for Mark Antony. Also in the scene before, he talks about how he needs to rid himself of her as he hears about all of the destruction that is happening under his lack of watch. Mm-hmm. He says that he needs to get out from under her spell. And halfway through this scene, he says, I leave as your soldier. Where's he at mentally where's he actually at? Mentally when he's leaving this scene? Does he think he's rid himself of her? Is he fully back under her thrall but going and getting this done? Where do you fall with her in this scene, coming in with the idea that you're trying to basically separate?
Yeah. I feel, and I mean, we may end up talking about this later, but I'm going to bring in a different play right now. It's kind of like with Caesar and Cleopatra, both these guys are, they've accomplished so much. He's conquered the world, and I'm just it's just like he's weary. He wants to settle down. He's found somebody that he's really fallen in love with, but he also realizes his what his role is, and it's like I've got to stop drinking, I've got to shape up here because I've got a world to run, so but the desire to be with her is very strong. There's a very push me, pull you thing going on with him.
Does that change the idea that I still need to run the world? I have responsibility for that. How does that change when kind of the third major character in this, Octavius, who I noted this time as you read it, you have that comment about Pompey borrowing his father's honor and glory, which sort of also feels a little bit like it kind of explains your ambivalence towards Octavius borrowing his uncle's honor with Julius Caesar. How does that change when because it feels like your motivations change to I'm not going to let this little squirt beat me. Not, I don't think this little squirt can run the world.
There's a competition with him, I think, definitely. He demeans him, but I think that there's definitely a competition thing with him. Not so much with Lepidus, you know, the third of the triumvirate. He's kind of talked about as a joke, but it's there's definitely something between Antony and Octavius.
Yeah, and it seems Cleopatra, Laila, there is that wonderful scene where they meet, where I don't know if you remember it off that. This is not the scene that we were working on today, so don't worry if I don't. But
when he captures
you, right? And there seems to be some sort of like feeling out of one another.
Yeah.
Of their humanity. And
I can't remember the exact words, but there is a sort of a slight testing of each other, a cat and mouse, kind of like I do this, then you do that, like a little chess game between them.
Yeah.
Testing each other.
And I think there is that weird little exchange. If I remember correctly, you call him my lord, and he says not so. Which always to me felt like a very interesting, like, Octavius is not interested in what happened with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony here. And I'm not sure that Cleo is either, but it's always struck me as an interesting, he seems kind of, we talk about the observers who are in the scenes with you. He seems like he's a presence for maybe less in this scene, but for the play, his relationship with both of you and your pride compared to him seems to take hits, especially for Mark Antony. Can I go back to the technical stuff for a second? Because I've got someone on, Musa Gurnis, who is she's a longtime Red Bull person in our sphere. And she had a question just going way back into the scene itself and going back to something you said earlier about the language and how you use it. I think Musa had a couple of specific questions about that for this scene. And I wonder if she could come on and ask it.
No, I won't get too nerdy. That was so wonderful, Laila. I was going to ask you. You've already talked a bit about this, but maybe you can say more. I'm just, Cleopatra has her verse is so irregular, right? Like the meters all, tons of trochees and all these caesuras, and which makes sense, right? Because she's just as you've said, she's so fitful, or so the fastest thinking woman in Shakespeare, right?
Right. Yeah.
And I guess like the fuller way, or the sort of that I was listening to you do it, and I thought, oh God, this is like such a narrow way to ask this question. And I think maybe like the fuller version of it is just to ask you to talk more about like hitting that whole range. I mean, it's in this scene and in the whole play. I mean, it's an incredible range of emotion and color and thought.
Yeah.
And I've seen so many people do that scene where it's like, it's all on the surface. Like she's just playing him and it's all like moody and she's playing him, but when you do it, it all happens to her, and I just wonder how you do that and how you play the tension between her being subject to her emotion and her, watching their interaction or watching him, that kind of thing.
Well, I mean, she has so many changes. I mean, when the messenger comes and the messenger finally goes away and says that she's marrying Octavia, there's this moment where I'm like, let him forever go. It can go from like huge, let him forever go, let him not take me away. Everything is like that,
Yeah.
And that's what's so fun about it as well. But I mean, the language that Shakespeare gives you, I always give this example when I'm talking to my students. When Antony's dying and she says, look, our lamp is spent. Now, if you take that sentence and you really use your consonants, if you say, look, our lamp is spent, it gives you that sense of a candle being blown out because of the air when you do the T and the T. Look, our lamp is spent. And you think, oh, that I'm over-articulating. But on the stage, you need to have those consonants. And by actually doing them with your body, it gives you an ache. That language plays you. which is the glorious part about it. And people sometimes want to skim over that and make it more colloquial or make it more modern or something, but they're missing out on the real juiciness of the fact that you can do so much less work if you just do what he tells you to do.
Thank you, Musa.
That answers your question. I mean, it's very schizophrenic. It's so much fun, and it's so funny. Oh my God, those messenger scenes are hilarious. And even at the end, when the snake man, the ass guy comes in, I mean, there's comedy there up until the very end. Yeah. It can be so funny, which kind of helps you out with all the heaviness of it as well.
Anthony's very much like that too. I mean, there's so much a fruit off the same tree, because he does the same thing with his servants. You know, that whole you guys have been so great. You know, it's been.
Get drunk.
Yeah, I mean, they're all. He has all these moments too. He's all over the place. They're so alike, and they're so opposite at the same. And I think that's why there's that attraction and that repulsion between the two of them all the time.
I still think the funniest line in it for me is his "not dead."
Yeah.
Not dead. It's when he tries to kill himself.
This poor guy can't do anything right at this time of his life.
I saw that in a repertory with Midsummer, and so Bottom as Pyramus used "what not dead" as one of his failures to die, just making fun of Mark Antony. Poor man. But yet, I will let Musa go. Thank you, Musa. Thank you for your question. I would love to know, the comedy thing is an interesting aspect of this, because it's not a comedy, it's a tragedy, but there's a lot of comedy in it. And the actor has to be both aware of the technique and the timing that exists in comedy, but also play honestly the what their characters are dealing with, which is often not comedic. Can you just speak to that just for a second about like how you balance both, I need to do X, Y, and Z, but I also want to be true to the emotions of the situation? Bob, I can ask you about specifically "what not dead." Like how do we deliver that line honestly from a suicidal man, knowing it's going to get a laugh? Like how do you go about that as an actor from 8 times a week?
Well, I try not to get a laugh. I mean, it's not about. I don't think it's about getting a laugh. I think this guy is earnestly wants to kill himself, and it's like Well, I mean, it's not so much that he misses the mark, is that he's also so. I mean, he thinks he's descendant of Hercules to begin with, so to try to kill yourself and find you can't. It's like you're. Please let me be human at this moment. You know, it's not so much as trying to find a laugh, and of course it's going to get a laugh because it just is a funny moment. But I don't think that it's. I don't think a lot of the humor is meant to be humorous.
Yet you play it straight. I mean, I think, like, for example, in the messenger scene, when I beat him up and he's coming in and he's cowering, and the first thing I say to him is, "It's never good to bring bad news." So you earnestly say to this guy, "Look, you want to live? Don't be bringing me bad news." But it always gets a laugh. But I'm very upset, actually, and when I'm saying it to him, because I am so distraught about the fact that Anthony is married Octavia. But there are these. You play it as Bob said. You don't play for the laugh. You play the intention, and you get a laugh.
But I think also it's fair for Anthony to be an audience once in a while for Cleo, so that, I mean, that's why he finds her charming and can find her amusing, and because he knows her game. You know, he finds that endearing to some extent, until it just, you know, gets to the point where she pushes every button in him. So
well, thank you. And I feel like in some ways, as I look back on my own question, I feel like I was leading to get you all to say you don't play for the laugh, because I feel like it's just a note that any actor watching really needs to hear. So thank you for saying it. And I Totally agree. And now I could do this all day, but I know people are curious about this aspect of it. And we have a wonderful Natasha Diaz on to ask a little bit about the fact that you two are a real life couple as well. But she can say it much better than me. So let's bring on Natasha Diaz to ask her question. Hi, Natasha.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much for that beautiful treat. It's so great to see you both. So here's my question. I'm going to try to read it. What a treat to see you together, speaking not only about the work, but working together. Life partner as scene co-creator, partner, adversary. Being friend and fan of you both, having experienced Jacques Brel with Bob, and watching you, Laila, literally everywhere my entire career, I have always wondered about this. As technicians and craftsmen, with the intimate knowledge of each other's personal, emotional, and psychological terrain in life, compounded with the familiarity of each other's toolbox of strengths, tricks, as actors, does that knowledge inhibit or dull the edge of process and discovery in the work in any way? Or does it sharpen it and open each other up to more danger and deeper vulnerability? What specifically is gained by having that intimate knowledge of each other? And what, if anything, becomes more of a challenge? What do you lose? Sorry.
No, don't apologize. It's a great question.
Well, I'll just start with a little funny. I said to Bob, hey, did you remember any of the funny things that happened when we were in this production? And he says,
well, we almost killed each other a couple of times.
he said it was one of the fun things that happened. But, we made an agreement early on because we'd never worked together before doing this. Is the first play we did together.
This is the first play we ever did together, yeah.
So we were a couple before we had worked together. So we were like, oh my God, how are we going to navigate this?
This is a hell of a couple to do for the first time.
First time out.
Mind you, yes.
So, and we would be sharing housing, with the Guthrie and all that. So it was like, we decided we would never talk about the play outside of the rehearsal room.
Right.
In other words, we weren't going to be home at night cooking dinner, and I wouldn't be going, honey, if you would just do this in this moment, then maybe I could do, we just didn't do that. Everything was spoken in front of the director, Mark Lamos. So that kind of kept it clean, sort of, so to speak.
And that also, I think that also answers a bit of your question in that we were able to go into rehearsal as two actors, not necessarily knowing what the other was going to do, and just work off of each other more, as opposed to working through it and talking it out at home while we're cooking dinner so much. We did talk about things in rehearsal.
Oh, in rehearsal, yeah.
Worked on scenes there.
Oh, but always with the director's eye or something to guide us or validate or support the ideas that we had or figure out what's the better idea.
And that sense of danger and discovery and does it, knowing each other so well, how does it help? How does it hinder? Is there like a, do you jump into playland easier, or is it harder to escape, harder to go into this other place?
Well, I think that this was still fairly new into our relationship.
Like 2 years in.
So to say we know each other so well is exaggerating it a little bit, because I think that there was still so much of the danger and still needing to learn a lot about each other. And we learned a lot about each other in this process because it was a new experience for both of us. We never worked together before.
I thought it was a little hairier when we did the Scottish play. I think that was because that's a darker play.
Well, yeah.
It just got a little more fuzzy as to what was happening between us or the characters.
Yeah.
Can I ask, does it ever, and thank you, Natasha. I won't force you to stay on anymore. Thank you for joining. Can I ask as a follow-up, I want to hear more about the Macbeth thing, because that sounds fascinating. And actually this fits for that. Characters that take stabs at each other, which both of those couples do. it seems to me that how does that affect, like, you know how to take stabs at each other, and do you find any bleed there between, like, I know exactly how to get a rise out of this person, my character is trying to get a rise out of this person's character? Do you ever find that it bleeds over in that way, where you find yourselves doing things that are maybe not specific to the character but specific to the relationship, if that reads?
I think it's I think it's I think our natural instinct is maybe a trigger in itself, as opposed to trying to elicit something out of Laila. It could be just the way that I played something could be so familiar that it just triggers something anyway.
I would agree. I don't think I ever intentionally went, oh, I know how to do this to get Bob. I would want it. This is what Cleopatra is doing to Antony, and if by default it got a little close to the bone, it would only be my instinct about playing something.
Right.
It wouldn't be like, oh, I'm trying to get Bob.
Yeah. Oh, that makes sense. I guess I was asking about the instinctive part, especially for the person receiving it from someone who is a partner, and seeing, because you are both such honest actors, seeing someone who is your real life partner come at you the way, to go to the Macbeth thing, the way Lady M comes at Macbeth when he tries to back off the plan. Does that, I'm just trying to dig into Natasha's question about, like, do you sometimes feel that? It's almost from the reaction perspective rather than the action perspective of, like, this is the person that I live with who's coming at me.
I would say during the Macbeth, in the section where Macbeth is sort of, moving away from Lady Macbeth later in the play, that there were moments in our life where I felt like, well, where are you going, Bob? Like, I almost felt a little abandoned. But I then realized, well, that's exactly what I should be feeling. That's the play we're doing. And I find that often sometimes in rehearsal, when I'm feeling something a little personally from somebody, I sometimes go, oh my God, that's exactly what my character is supposed to be feeling. And so this is a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
And identifying it. But early on, when you first feel it, you kind of feel, why is that actor messing with me? Oh, actually my character's supposed to feel that he's messing with me. But sometimes it takes a second. It's so obvious, but it sometimes takes a second to sort of realize that.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure. I think you're not giving yourself enough credit when you say that it's obvious. But because it does feel, I don't know. I find that answer fascinating. I'm not sure I'm the right person to unpack it, but the idea of the depth of the real reaction being the same as the character's reaction, and having to lean into that, but also understand that it stays on stage and doesn't go home with you, must be an interesting dynamic for playing any kind of troubled partnership or non-troubled partnership on stage.
Well, just like any other couple, there's times when there's heat between us. There's times when it's, when we're very loving, and there are times when, I could be walking away and Laila could say, well, where are you going? That kind of a thing. So those emotions are in us already. And I think if that plays in a scene, it's going to naturally trigger something in each one of us to respond to. But I don't think either one of us takes it personally.
No. I really love acting with Bob, and I never feel like it never gets into some sort of weird head trip or something,
So I do guess that was going to be my follow-up question was, do you like acting with one another? And is it, if you do, which it seems like you do, which one would hope, given your professions, what is it just that you get to be in the same room together when you're working, or is there some additional joy added to the process of, like, I'm actually performing opposite this person, this partner?
Well, I mean, often when we get jobs out of town, we go on our own. So first of all, it's an opportunity just to be together. Secondly, I think there's nothing more fun and juicy than creating something together, And so I feel like it it adds to our relationship so much because we're actually creating something together, and that's juicy and hot and wonderful. You know?
Yeah, and you know, we respect each other so much, and we respect how we each work, and it just we've had a good time. And you know, like I said, Antony and Cleopatra was the first time we played together, and we're still together. So we we got through. If we could get through that,
Yeah, well,
we played three. We've done three
Three
shows
plays
and
together.
many readings together. Yeah, we've worked a lot.
what was the third? We've heard Macbeth and Antony and Cleopatra.
It was a modern play called Fiction by Stephen Dietz.
Mhm.
Nice.
He did it at Princeton.
At the McCarter.
Carter.
And was it also a couple?
It was, and there was only one other character, which is
Yeah.
a woman that he has an affair with, Marianne Hagen, wonderful woman, Marianne Hagen. And I remember they used to go out in the back alley and smoke together, and I'm not a smoker. And I go out like, what are they talking about? What are they doing?
Perfect. Well, thank you. I think it's just a fascinating insight because a lot of, you know, there are a lot of actors who are partners, and I think that for everyone that relationship is a little bit unique. And but it sounds like this is a particularly healthy way of doing it. So thank you.
A lot of I think a lot of performers that are partners met performing, and we did not meet. We were together for a couple of years before we actually did something together. So it was a different experience that way.
Yeah, it wasn't a relationship that came out of falling in love during a play or
It wasn't
something.
a showmance.
How did you meet?
Well, we were singing at the same benefit for Shakespeare Theater of New Jersey.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Well, I love that.
Dana Reeve had just done a play with Bob, Enter the Guardsman, and I was sort of at a loss. And she's like, how about him? He's a wonderful guy. And I'm like, I don't know him.
The best way to learn that you were the right person is when the other person says, well, I was at a loss and they were the closest.
Makes me feel really good. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, great. Well, let me just because we're coming to the
On the whole, thanks, honey.
Yeah. I feel like every relationship starts kind of like that. Maybe that says too much about mine. On that note, before this completely
We
devolved,
didn't survive this Zoom. We got through Antony and Cleopatra, but I don't know about
true drama on a podversation. Come for the nerdiness, stay for the drama. We just have a few minutes left. Jessica, do we have a question or two from the audience that we want to get to before we're done? Yeah, yes, we do. Rebecca says, hello from Scotland. Hello. What has been your favorite role on stage or screen and why? We'll give you each the floor. Let's start with Laila.
I think my favorite role is Blanche Dubois at Streetcar Named Desire. And I had the opportunity to do it at Steppenwolf Theater, and then I got to do it at the Shakespeare Theater of New Jersey. And why? I love Tennessee Williams. I think he lets a woman be everything that a woman is. Obviously, he's writing about himself, but it's visceral, it's intellectual, it's spiritual, it's the whole 9 yards. And the language is extraordinary once again. And the journey of her soul just moves me, and I would play it all the time if I could. I just love that role.
That's a tough one because there's a lot that have been my favorites, and to nail it down to just one is difficult. I can't go without saying that Jekyll and Hyde was one of my favorite roles because it stretched me and worked me in so many different ways, emotionally, physically, vocally, dramatically, and so it stretched me as a performer to the nth degree. As far as like classical work goes, I would say that it would be Salieri in Amadeus was one of my favorites, and that was one of my favorite roles. Yeah.
Yeah, that one almost doesn't need a why. It's just Salieri. Such an extraordinary role. Jessica, I think we can stretch it and have time for one. What other plays would you like to do together? Great question. That's from Carolyn J.
Oh, it could be fun to do a Beatrice and Benedict, Much Ado. Is it Much Ado? Yeah.
Mhm.
Right? I always get them mixed up. I think that could be fun.
Yeah, definitely.
Taming of the Shrew. I don't know. We're probably a little long in the tooth for that. That might
Well,
not end well.
if it's a big theater,
It's very forgiving. Yeah.
It's funny that you say Benedict and Beatrice, because I've always thought that they're sort of like slightly young Macbeth and Lady Macbeth, like before everything goes terribly wrong. But yeah, that I would pay to see you two do them. Do Benedict and Beatrice. Maybe we'll make it happen. I'm sure Jesse's watching.
You hear that, Jesse? Yeah.
You hear that, Jesse? Let's make promises we can't keep. All right. Well, and thank you both. We are at time, so I have to call it there. But before we go, are there any? I know you both have been just wildly busy. Are there any projects coming out that you have worked on that you want to do a quick pitch to? Anything that people should look out for to see you in anytime soon?
I've got a new miniseries coming out called Dr. Death, which I think they're just wrapping it up soon, and it's an 8-part series. So I have a role in that, and I'm going up to do the 3rd season of The Boys up in Toronto for Amazon, and I'm got to work with Queen Latifah the other day. I did a guest, possible recurring, on the new Equalizer, so that was a lot of fun. She's a doll. Latifah's really wonderful.
Oh, that's amazing. All right, well, we have to. I'm not going to repeat back all 3, but we have to watch all of those. That sounds great, and I've been following Equalizer, so I'm looking forward to that one.
And we've been working on a play reading for the Amos Musical Theater.
We've been it's being filmed. We're filming it on our phones. Everyone's doing it from the privacy of their own homes, and it will be it's called Home Sweet Homeland. And we're in the process of filming that right now.
It's a 9/11 play. It's a very intense play.
Yeah, it's being done through Amos. And I'm going to be doing shooting a web series, the pilot of a web series in the end of April, beginning of May, hopefully, if all COVID rules hold. So we'll, fingers crossed that will still continue.
Awesome. Well, check out The Equalizer, Home Sweet Homeland, all of these. If you're here, they're amazing performers, worth seeing in everything they do. If you enjoyed, Bob and Laila, let me let you go before I do all of the Red Bull sign off stuff.
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, if you enjoyed this conversation, hopefully you enjoyed it half as much as I did. If you enjoyed this, all of the other Podversations we have had are available on YouTube and on our website, as will this one be in perpetuity. So they're stuck with us, and they'll never get away from us, and we can blackmail them whenever we need to. The next things that Red Bull have coming up is on March 15th. We are doing a reading of Galatea, directed by Emma Rosa Wendt, which we are co-producing with the Drama League. And then a week later, we will be presenting a new adaptation of the same play, Galatea, by M.J. Kaufman in cooperation with WP Theater. So mark a calendar for both of those. And our next Podversation will be about a month from now on April 4th, where I will sit down with John Douglas Thompson to discuss the aforementioned Macbeth.
Wonderful.
So both of those are going to happen. And everything we do at Red Bull is free this season. We are excited and happy that we are able to do so. We are only able to do so with your help. So if you are able, please do give. There's no amount too small or too large. You can give $100, $10, $1 million. We'll take anything, anything you want. And if not, we're so happy that you could come anyway. That is all for tonight. And thank you for joining us for tonight's RemarkaBULL Podversation. I'm your host, Nathan Winkelstein. Have a lovely night. Bye all.
Michael.
Thank you.